Our Valley. Tune into Valley News Live now on Facebook, YouTube, or the VNL app every Thursday at 1 p.m. to help us honor those who've served and the people who support them.
Hi, I'm Jessie Ahmet, your host of Valley News Now, and today we're remembering the 40th anniversary of the terrorist attack on military barracks in Beirut, Lebanon. And we're talking about John Arne Olson, who was a local boy from Sabin, Minnesota. I got to sit down with his family and talk a little bit about his story. John Arne Olson was born on April 8, 1962 in Sabin, Clay County, Minnesota, and he served in the United States Marine Corps as a corporal. John was killed in the terrorist bombing of the United States Marine Barracks. In the early morning of the 23rd of October, 1983, a truck loaded with explosives crashed through the security perimeter of the USMC Barracks in Beirut, Lebanon. In the explosion that followed, 241 U.S. military personnel were killed and 80 seriously wounded. He's now buried in the Trinity Lutheran Cemetery, Elmwood Township, Clay County, Minnesota, and his headstone shows rank of sergeant. That was from the American War Memorial Overseas, Inc. So today, October 23rd, 2023, marks the 40th anniversary. So 40 years since the Olson family from Sabin, Minnesota, lost their brother and son, Johnny, in a terrorist attack on the Marine Barracks in Beirut, Lebanon. I'm going to pull up their interview. So we sat down to talk with his sister Mary, her husband and brother-in-law Rick, her brother Roger, and his brother-in-law Gary.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. So if we could just go around and maybe say your name and who you are. We'll start with Mary. How about?
I'm Mary. I'm John's sister. The how many in line? Sixth or fifth or sixth in line, yeah.
Oh, how many are there?
10.
10. Okay. All right. So you're fifth, sixth-ish.
I'm that middle child.
Ah, I see why you're so sassy. And this
Well, you
is...
picked up on that right away.
I'm her husband, Rick.
Thank you for being here, Rick. And we got a brother.
Yeah, I'm Roger Olson, and I'm fourth in line. John was ninth in line.
Ninth. Okay,
Yes.
wow.
Yeah.
And brother-in-law?
Brother-in-law Gary Christian.
Okay, nice to have you guys here. So we're remembering coming up on the 40th anniversary.
Yes, come
So-
Monday.
Come Monday.
Yep.
So I'm going to really hand it over to you and let you tell me the story of what it, yeah.
Where do we begin?
Where do we begin is right. So military family sounds like.
So, two? Our dad was in the Army and our brother was in Vietnam, Marine Corps.
Okay, wow.
Yep, and then Johnny, of course. And nieces and nephews that were in the military also.
Just because of John.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, the high
We
school,
had cousins
she
join
was in
also
high
because
school,
of
and she
John.
says, "I'm going in the Marines."
Yep. Yeah. It hit a lot of family
Definitely.
very seriously. Yep. Yep.
So we're talking 1983. So how long had he been in?
I'm going to say 3 years,
Okay.
as best we can calculate. He graduated in 1980,
Okay.
and so 3 years would just make sense. And
Yep. Yep. And so went right into the Marine Corps.
after he got mom and dad's okay,
Was that difficult?
I don't think so. They
No.
were very supportive in most everything we wanted to do.
Well, that's pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah. He was stationed out at Camp Lejeune in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and I'm not even sure when he went on ship to go to Beirut.
Sure.
I think it was in May of 1983.
Okay, okay,
Wow. So he'd just been there a few months.
yes, and due to come home 2 weeks.
No.
Yep,
2 weeks.
yep. I'm sorry.
Please don't ever be sorry. No. 2 weeks.
Yeah, he was so anxious. There's scrapbooks downstairs, and one of the letters he writes to mom and dad. This is so hard.
It's okay.
He was just so anxious to get home. He wants to go to a football game. He wants to check out the U of M campus. So many, see the youngins because they're all coming up so quick. And he never got to do any of that. Yeah,
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah, he was due to be out of Beirut in November Yeah, that would have been 2
Sounds
weeks.
right. Yeah.
Probably the day he was buried. I know, it just makes, because it was 2 weeks from the time he was killed
Wow.
to when his funeral was here at home.
So how did you guys hear the news?
Well, my husband and I lived in Lincoln, Nebraska at the time, and it was an early Sunday morning. I got up out of bed and I right away turned on the TV, and there it was. So I called Mom and Dad and I said, have you guys been watching the news this morning? No, they hadn't. Well then, and you guys have already heard this, but Dad came running out of their bedroom. He had just heard it on the radio. And so I said, I'm going to let you go in case Johnny tries to get a hold of you. And we waited 3 days, did you think?
There were 3 days passed, and they hadn't declared anything about John at that point,
Okay.
so they assumed he was
You're hoping.
alive and
Yep.
moving around the area, which was mass confusion
Yeah.
in
Of
Beirut.
course.
On Wednesday morning is when they declared him missing in action, and sometime between then and Saturday, they found his remains and declared him killed in action. And that's when the Marines came out and notified Mom and Dad that he was gone.
So they came to the house.
Yes.
Wow.
I'll tell you, if you ever get the opportunity to see the movie Taking Chance, it really resonates with this whole situation. It talks about, it's Kevin Bacon, and he's the escort to the fallen Marine. And it's just excellently done and such a good movie. Yep.
That's good. Yeah.
And the Marines had an escort for John as
Yep.
well. And to this day, he's a very close friend of our family.
Yep.
That's amazing. So how do you move, you hear the news and then you're spreading it to the family? Tell me about
Well,
how that went.
the only person I talked to was my mom, because I didn't want to get a hold of anybody else, in case Johnny was trying to get a hold of anybody.
Sure, so
'Cause-
just leave the phones alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is 1983. We don't have, it's not like
Yeah,
now.
there weren't 10 phones in the room.
No, no.
Right.
We had to keep the line open.
Yep, yep. We figured too, Dad had said, if he was okay, he would find a way to get a hold of us.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me about him. What was he like?
Oh, go ahead, you had such a good story before.
He was pretty normal teenager.
Yeah.
Got in trouble here and there. And,
Good.
Interested, very active in sports, hunting, loved to hunt, and was good at it.
Yeah.
So he, I don't know when his interest took hold in the Marines, but he had joined the Marines, and at some point he was a recovering alcoholic when he got killed, and was instrumental in helping to set up a AA chapter in Beirut, Lebanon, which had never had one before.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. As a 21-year-old,
Mhm.
making a difference.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
He was also the chaplain's assistant out there, so he got to go all around the area spreading God's word, and he loved what he did. Just, he loved it.
He took flyers out of the helicopters for AA meetings, would talk the pilots into dumping them out so that people would come to the AA meeting. One way he could communicate. When he was a chaplain's assistant, I asked him about that, and he says, it's a little tough. He says, I have to keep a .45 pistol behind the altar. So he says, here's where I keep a .45 pistol behind the altar. When he sets up, he'd set up,
That's something else.
he'd set up the service and put his gun
And put his gun right there.
behind him.
It's a little different than we have when we experience it here.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and 40 years later, today, they're going through the exact same thing.
Well, and that's what's so crazy too. So
I prefer to call it a remembrance because an anniversary is to be celebrated, so I call it a remembrance. Yeah.
The chaplain that he was assistant to they were actually sleeping in the same room when the explosion happened, and somehow the chaplain survived.
really,
Yeah, they were on the 4th floor of the building, and
room split in half, and he went one way, and John went in, and he went.
he was trapped in the building for a number of hours, but they found him and got him out. And I think to this day he's still living. I
Oh, he
believe he lives
is.
in
We're
Wisconsin.
Facebook friends.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
Yeah.
Danny Wheeler.
Right?
The good power of social media, right?
Absolutely.
Did you get to visit with him with the chaplain when he came back to the United States?
Yeah, he's visited our family.
Okay,
in,
yep.
At Sabin.
Yeah.
Several times, actually, that I've
Yeah.
come across him.
That would be
40 years.
neat to talk to him, I'm sure, for your parents and for you guys.
Hmm.
Just kind of a, yeah.
I'm sure he would have a lot of good things to say about John.
He had very high standing in our family.
That's cool.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I'm still amazed as a 21-year-old to have, gone through whatever he'd gone through to brought him to the point of being a recovering alcoholic and to turn his life around, already be a chaplain's assistant and be helping other people establishing AA there. He's only 21.
He also built a library. He would write letters to home asking for books so that he could stock his library. Well, then it got to the point where I have too many books. Don't send any more.
The library's full.
Exactly. So he was very proud of that.
Wow,
Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing. Because again, this is 1983. It isn't not like now where we have access to everything on our phone. So these guys are there, and what a great thing for them to do.
And it was open to the public too, I believe, to the Beirut, Lebanon public. Yeah.
The AA, National AA chapter has a pamphlet called The Grapevine, and The Grapevine is kind of their national newsletter.
Okay.
And John would write to the AA chapter asking for help or information, and he wrote all these letters. They came out after his death with an article on John about the beginnings of Beirut and for their AA. So that was a national publication.
And so were you aware of all of those things that he was doing there before his death?
Yes,
He
yep.
was keeping you informed
He
and
was really good about writing letters.
Oh, very much so.
Really good.
If you go downstairs to the archives, I have a couple of scrapbooks where I put together all kinds of
oh, awesome. I can't wait.
different things. It's fun, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very fun. Yeah, he's an incredible guy. You guys are an incredible family. So you've got this great calendar too,
Yep.
with all pictures, and I'll zoom in later so people can see. But pictures of him growing up, yeah, it looks like just all-American kid.
Absolutely. What did I call him here? The Scandinavian, blonde Scandinavian or something.
There you go, a Scandinavian, Minnesotan, blonde-haired,
Yep.
blue-eyed kid with an infectious smile that didn't quit.
Exactly. That was him. And this flagpole that you see is erected out at the Sabin Cemetery, the Sabin Trinity Lutheran Cemetery. Family put that up after John's death, so you must have been out there. Yep, okay.
So, what was it like then to move on after that? I mean, you
It's
don't ever
just
move
annual.
on.
I mean, it's like this time, October, pretty much the whole month, you think about it. But talking about it like this really, truly helps.
Good.
Yes,
And
yes.
people need to hear his story. We don't
Yes.
want him to ever be forgotten.
We want that to happen, yes.
Yeah. So 40 years, he'd be 61.
Oh my gosh.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, almost as old as me.
No,
Almost.
he'll never be that old.
We're on camera. I know.
Oh, Jason, I'm sure do you have any?
I'd share one more thing too, which is quite unusual. I live in Venice, Florida, of course, and I was having some computer problems, so I have a fella that I've talked to about it, and he came over to my house to help me with my computer, and he's Lebanese, and so he was working on it. And pretty soon I asked him about Lebanon, and had mentioned John, and he says, "Oh my goodness." And this is just out of clear. He says he was in that bombing. He says, yes. He says, I was in the Lebanese military. I dug them out. He said,
Really?
and he said, I was on the special squad that chased down the group. He said within hours, they were chasing this group, he says, into the mountains. He said, I had to go out and try to get them. They got across some border where they couldn't touch them. Then they came back and started digging. He was right there, and he was just fixing my computer in Florida.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
Small world.
it is.
Wow.
Yes, I couldn't believe it.
I'll bet. I'll bet.
Incredible.
Yeah, it is.
The odds of that.
and then have finding his way back to the United States, this gentleman back to Florida, and then back to having a discussion about it.
Right, and this is your brother-in-law, you know?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. That
Yeah.
gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, it did when he said that to me.
Oh, I can
He says, "Oh, I'll
imagine.
help dig them out." I said, "You?" He said, "Yes, I was in Lebanese army."
So on the actual day this year, is any special plans on?
Visit the
stepping on day?
cemetery.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what we'll be doing. We're actually going to meet a guy who was with Johnny at the time in Beirut, and he comes out to the cemetery every year to just to honor him. They were both in AA together. Roger Smith, do you know the name?
know.
I've never met him either, but I'm going to meet him on Monday. We're going to get together at the cemetery.
Oh, it's so incredible too that every year you continue to honor his memory.
Of course.
I just love that.
Of course.
Then we get to see several of the things that she had brought and has at the Yum Camp Center. I'm going to stop it here so you can see. Here's Johnny's senior picture. She's got all of this at the Yum Camp Center, so you can see all of this in their archives. His certificate of acceptance in the military. And then this was just a really neat story that they told. So Johnny had wanted to make sure his mom had flowers for Mother's Day, and so he sent from Beirut $10 and a letter to a local florist, asked that they could send his mom flowers, and he even wrote what he wanted to say to her. Well, the gentleman that got it, apparently the floral shop was no longer open, but of course he didn't know that because he was in Lebanon. But he drove to Fergus Falls, went and got flowers to make sure that Johnny's wish to make his mom smile on Mother's Day came true. In the article where he's laid to rest, also the letter from Ronald Reagan expressing their condolences on the death of their son. The family writing up their story. And here's the letter that they received. I can't imagine receiving a letter like that. That their son was indeed found, but killed in action. So we're remembering John Arne Olson and the 40th anniversary of the terror attacks on the military barracks in Beirut, Lebanon. They talked again, the family, so thank the Olson family for sitting down with me and sharing all about their brother, Johnny. All the stories, when they realized he'd be 61, they sure shared a lot of laughs talking about what he might be doing. So today for John Olson and for the other 220 Marines, 18 sailors, and 3 soldiers who gave the ultimate sacrifice that day 40 years ago, we mourn for you. Each of them has a story to tell. Each of them has a life lived and a family who still aches to hold their loved one and shed tears for what might have been. There are no words that can heal those wounds, but we attempt to express our gratitude for these men and women and their families. And with deeply grateful hearts, we thank each one of their contributions for their contributions to the country, to our communities, for our lives. And we remember today and every day that freedom isn't free.
Valley News Now and Cashway Distributing are partnering to celebrate the veterans of our valley. Tune into Valley News Live now on Facebook, YouTube, or the VNL app every Thursday at 1 p.m. to help us honor those who served and the people who support them.